Well, there are increasing calls for the term coloured to be abolished. This follows a petition by People Against Race Classification to Parliament on Thursday, demanding that the government gets rid of the use of the word coloured. Now, People Against Race Classification, a group of activists, appeared before the Select Committee to state their discomfort caused by the word, saying it was confusing and racist. Now, let's discuss this further. We're now joined via Zoom by Glen Snyman, leader of the People Against Race Classification. Glen, thank you so much for your time. Now, as we obviously head to a very important commemoration, and that is Human Rights Day, just for the benefit of our viewers, let's start this conversation by you giving us context why you feel the term coloured is, amongst others, derogatory and confusing. What are you proposing to Parliament?
Good afternoon. What we proposing to Parliament was that they should get rid of this word. That word stems from the old apartheid race definitions, and it is inhumane and very disrespectful to refer to certain people still by the word coloured. Of course, coloured means mixed. And we ask, you are mixed with what? Another human being. So we just feel that it is about time that new terms should be used to describe the South African population by. What PARC is about the identification and the accurate identification of the South African people, and also giving recognition to cultural groups like the Khoisan people, Afrikaners, Xhosa, Zulu. Whatever group of people feel they want to be culturally identified with, the recognition should be given to them. And every time when we talk to the government about accurate identity and group definitions, they keep on throwing affirmative action policies back to us and redress. We tell them, but there are other ways to redress and to fix past injustices and use poverty barometers in how to fix economical imbalances in society. But it has nothing to do with race and the individual's choice of how we want to be identified.
Now, I mean, this conversation is not the first time that we are having it. In fact, there were suggestions of even naming of brown people at some point in time. But what do you say to the group of people that is proud of their mixed heritage? How do you navigate that space, especially if you believe, as you've said, that the term conceals the true historical identity of, for instance, you mentioned the Khoi and the San people, for one?
Those people that refer to themselves as proudly coloured or kleurling in Afrikaans, they should go and have a look again at where that name is coming from. In the early 1800s, when the other physical-looking people came footshore on South African soil, they came here and started naming people according to how they wanted and felt like naming people. And over all the years, the South African and the indigenous population never had a choice how they want to be named. And while certain people are fighting for a very sensitive issue like personal identity, others are negligent and ignorant about it, and they keep on using terms that they don't know what the history of it is. So even they should be stopped of using these terms. The so-called colored people are also being referred to as brown people. And where the name colored is coming from is from mix. They refer to these people as mix. We keep on asking ourselves, mix with what? And the term, the same people are also being referred to as brown. Brown in the same context as white people or a black person. And the same group of people, their leaders are sometimes referred to as, when they are part of the ANC government, their leaders from this group refer to themselves as black people. And in certain instances, they are also being referred to as white people or African people. Now, how can we have so many group identities for the same group of people from the so-called same group. That's why we feel it's about time that government should let on this, that Parliament should have call a national debate on South African identities. Parliament asked me to engage more with the so-called colored community on this topic. For the last 12 years, I did engage with the community, but I don't have the financial capacity or the capacity in total to engage a whole South African community. So the current state's essay to count the population, they ran with a budget of 3.2 billion rand, and not even they easily was able to count the whole South African population. So what does Parliament expect from me to call all the people together and the colored people to ask them what they want to be called to? It's their obligation to call a survey on this and put an end to this.
Now I mentioned, you mentioned that, with the lack of resources, you can't take this further. There has been a suggestion, though, by, in fact, a Labour Minister, Thulas Nxesi, who says that maybe a national dialogue is needed. What was the appetite, as far as you are concerned about that? Taking this broader to communities, as you've said, at a national level. I mean, as it stands, the concern by the minister is the classification in the Employment Equity Act. He's saying that it's not unconstitutional and that it remains critical, to achieving substantive equality to redress the past imbalances. But you obviously don't agree with him on that. So what are your thoughts on having this national dialogue?
We welcome a national dialogue on identity. And what the Minister of Labour said to us, Nxesi, that it is constitutional to use the race blocks. That is not accurate, because that still needs to be tested in court. What the Constitutional Court in the High Court told them in the past is that redress is necessary. PARC and we are not against redress. We believe in redress, in solving poverty in the society, South African society, on community, and the upliftment of community. That's what we believe in. But what we also say is separate the two. Let's have identity being dealt with on the one side, and let's have redress and economical upliftment of the people on the other side. Because society has evolved and they have moved on. It's not only just black people that are poor today. There are people in all communities that are poor. And as well, there are people in all communities, especially black, that have made economical progress in society, and and they don't actually need redress. So everyone that's in need and in need of opportunities needs to be given to it. The whole issue regarding how we should move about tackling this issue of how are we going to call the South African community to raise their voice on how they feel about identity. That is something that government needs to go sit down and tackle. Again, we cannot assume that the majority of colored people want to be referred to as colored, or that they don't want to be referred to as colored. That we won't know. But it's not the so-called coloreds that have an identity problem. It's everyone. Everyone's in South Africa, white, black, Indian, all of their racial identities and how they are being referred to are in question. And this is a problem that the government should take serious, and they should not just take it lightly. I want to refer to the weekend's rapport. There was a heading that said, om bruin genoemd te word as 'n skale skande, to be referred to as a brown person is a shame. Now, if a newspaper think that of the so-called brown people, it just shows you the level of disrespect that they have for the people that have been referred to like that they can publish something like that. If that word was substituted with the word white people to be called a white person is a shame or disgrace. Or if it said black, to be called black is a shame or disgrace. Om swart genoemd te word is 'n skale skande. Then they would have had the EFF on their doorstep already. So they wouldn't dare doing that to the other groups. So why would they now do it to only the brown people or the so-called the colored people?
The committee,
we don't understand that.
So Glenn, the committee is deliberating. It is expected to then come back to you with whatever its findings are. What are you hoping for, especially if they come back and say that, you know, unfortunately your request will not be granted?
I don't think that they won't grant this request, because they were very serious that there should be a national debate for identity for all people. But even if they don't grant the request, we will continue our lifetime struggle for the proper identification of oneself, because I myself refer to myself as a Khoi person. So does many others. A lot of our people are grouped into cultural groupings which they are proud of, and we as South Africans need to respect that. But it is everyone's choice how we want to be grouped and how we want to be named, and that is something that needs to be looked at one or other time. It's just a pity that the South African Human Rights Commission don't want to take a stance on race classification, because it is a human rights concern in South Africa, and we want to tell them we are not talking about affirmative action. They should stop throwing affirmative action policies to us. They should talk and focus on identity, and identity is a serious matter. So yes, even if Parliament or government say they don't want to go our way, we as a South African people will always identify ourselves the way we want to and feel like doing.
Glenn, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Really do appreciate it. That was Glen Snyman, leader of People Against Race Classification. Of course, this follows increasing calls for the term coloured to be abolished.